Welcome to this webinar. It's the fourth in a series that examines the role of the PGA professional as the engine for growth in our industry. In this webinar, we're going to look at how we place a value on the PGA professional. In trying to place a value on the PGA professional, we open at the challenge of what should anyone value about that role. In an industry that dedicates so much of its effort into polishing its product, whether it's the golf facility, the course condition, the pro shop, the coaching studio, the status of the club and the pros. The danger is that we'll create measures or value measures that pay too little attention to the customer. At RetailTribe, we believe any discussion about the value of the PGA professional can only take place when we embrace our true mission, one that ought to be creating exceptional experiences for our customers, the golfers. Yes, we're making use of our facilities and expertise and staff, but that only comes to life with engagement with the golfer. In our industry, we're encouraged to collect more and more data in the search for answers. Rounds grow or decline by 1% depending on the number of rain days, or what was the exact satisfaction level after every round. We're always in search of some new numbers, hoping that those numbers will lead us to more rounds, more revenue. But there are some numbers we've got. Here are two critical facts we seem to choose to ignore. Put a golfer next to a golf professional in a meaningful engagement, and A, the golfer will subsequently be much more likely to have more enjoyment beyond the first tee, and B, the golfer will probably be more likely to be retained in the game and to play golf more often. And if that's the number we want, if B, to have golfers retained in the game and to playing golf more often is a number we want, and we know that if they enjoy themselves beyond the first tee, then we're taking a step towards knowing what the true value of a PGA professional is. If we're all in the search of the big numbers, rounds, membership, revenue, and we know that engagement has that scale of impact, then there is the first number we ought to be focused on, engagement. This webinar is actually a small subpart of a much larger 2-day revenue workshop that many US professionals have now been on. Ken Morton, the godfather of the green grass in the US, described what he learned as tactical, practical, common sense that is easy to implement. 30 years of working across multiple retail industries has taught me that in industries where the consumers dominate our day, ideas need to be very simple to execute. I hope that as we go through this webinar, you'll also walk away with similar thoughts. This was obvious. It's practical. This is so easy to implement. Those are my objectives. The only complexity I'm going to introduce is the fact that you have to make sure 3 different groups understand and appreciate the right things if a PGA professional is to be valued. First, we need golfers to be able to sense very practically your value as an expert. Then we need to make sure our own staff face the right way. They're very sure about the numbers that matter and the focus of their activities. Then we need to take management along with us. We need to tell management what we've delivered. I hope that by the end of this webinar, you'll have at least 3 simple ideas you can execute back at your facility. I also hope that if you aren't already, you'll walk away from the webinar as a convert to the belief that the PGA professional is the most powerful marketing weapon the industry has at its disposal. I also hope that you're going to take on board that your value to everybody is derived almost exclusively, not totally, but almost exclusively, from your ability to transform the experience the golfer has beyond the first tee. You increase the enjoyment of the experience with the product, the way the golfer experiences the golf product, you increase their enjoyment of that. That must drive, therefore, our analysis of your value. By the way, that's how the most successful retailer in the world sees it. Apple don't make the best computer equipment, but they do a number of things very, very well. One that I pick out today is their obsession with engagement between a genius and a consumer in store. They know that what they call a genius will improve the consumer's experience with the product, and therefore they'll be more likely to be converted to a paying customer or nurtured and retained as a current customer. The number of engagements Apple create in store is an obsession of theirs. By the way, if we separate the retail winners on one side and the laggards on another, you'll find some interesting correlations in their success and how much they value engagement. You'll find the retail winners are all obsessed about engagement, and you'll find the retail laggards maybe not so much. Best Buy, for instance, have struggled. Their model, as they foresaw an internet world, moved labour and expertise out of stores and left customers, as you can see in this image here, to engage with products themselves. Brand advertising was meant to inspire consumers into these technology category killer superstores, but from there it was all self-service, extremely limited engagement between expert and customer. And Best Buy's disastrous trading results quickly reflected that. Changes in management, though, have brought about some change. Now we have the Geek Squad in a Best Buy store, experts able to assist customers who require it. But there's a very subtle but important philosophical difference between Apple and Best Buy here. Actually, Apple don't create engagement because the customer requires it. Apple creates engagement because Apple wants the highest sales conversion and highest customer retention rates in the industry. Apple reach out to every customer that walks into their stores with the objective of engaging with as many of them as possible and converting as many of those they engage with into customers. Everything about their genius is made to be approachable. They certainly wouldn't place them in strange uniforms behind the counters, which, by the way, unfortunately, is the environment found in almost every pro shop. In what is meant to be a tactile, personal service, high service industry, we place our geniuses behind a counter and make them collect the money and sell the attachments. That's, the golf balls, the gloves, those sorts of things. The PGA professional engaging with a golfer front to counter can make a profound impact on not just the amount of golf a golfer plays, but also what they think. Here's a number for you as we start to place a value on the PGA professional. If you stock a brand in your shop, then your consumers are 300% and more likely to purchase that brand, even from elsewhere, than another consumer at a club where the brand isn't stocked. That's how valuable you are in the equipment supply chain. If you don't know that, then the brands do. In fact, they know that a consumer is 700% more likely to believe a comment made by you about their brand than they are to believe the brand themselves in their advertising. After all, they know that you're the consumer's expert friend. That's why many of the big brands are now giving professionals content to post. It's not just the reach to your database they're after. It's your endorsement. It's your testimony. It's that your database believes you. But be very careful. Don't taint your value by becoming a simple advertiser. By all means, make sure you post brand content, as shown on the left here by Tim Hall at Ross on Y. But it should be amongst many posts that demonstrate your value to the golfer and to the golf club, as Tim Hall shows on the right here, to Ross on Y Golf Club, to both its junior golfers and the management who see that. And while we're on the subject of important numbers, here's a very simple notice board that was in the shop at North Foreland, Darren Paris's North Foreland golf shop. It shows the impact that Darren had on golfers' tee shots. The yardage they arrived with and the yardage they left with and the number of yards gained after a driver fitting. Golfers can very easily see a number here, a number that matches in their mind a value that Darren brings to them. Incidentally, 30 minutes after posting this picture, Darren added another Facebook post with a new record holder, 36 yards added to a golfer's tee shot. It's not the largest. Brendan Tim has the highest number of any I know, and you're not going to believe this, 81 metres. By the way, subsequently validated with the golfer. It's not so astonishing when you consider Tim Hall, who I mentioned earlier, in 2014 averaged over 30 yards throughout the year. So all the golfers that came to him for driver fittings, his average throughout the year was over 30 yards. Those are great numbers. They demonstrate your value. In fact, telling stories about these sorts of numbers helps to place a value on the impact you make for golfers. It's equally important to make sure that golfers know you care passionately about their golf game. Once you have an online solution, the temptation is to make lots of offers and promotions. We see many golf professionals offering many products in sales. It seems logical. But to retain your perceived value to the golfer beyond the first tee, the exceptional value you bring the game, not the value as a retail discounter, which by the way doesn't need a PJ professional. If you want to retain your exceptional value, make sure that 70% of your marketing posts are targeted at providing the golfer with insight, education and motivation. That is called marketing with meaning. It's not selling, it's marketing with the meaning for the golfer. The reason why they play the game. You are marketing to appeal to the reason why they play the game. There's so many numbers here you can use. You have so much potential to market without selling in a way that brings more golfers to you. Here's just two numbers for you that are very relevant to your golfers. In research that was done, 73% of golfers who were fitted said that the result exceeded their expectations. Not met or satisfied, but exceeded. Who can do a fitting? You can do a fitting. Never mind what your golfers are aware of in terms of these numbers. Are your management aware that over 73% of your consumers, you exceed their expectations? And did you know that if you combine stock shafts, shaft flex, shaft length and lie angle, there are almost 900 different configurations of a Ping G35 iron. It's not possible to pull an iron off the shelf if you're a golfer. You need an expert to find the right shaft, the right shaft flex, the right shaft length, the right lie angle for you to be able to enjoy your golf game. Your members and your management need to understand that consequence and those numbers. And by the way, don't be shy about those numbers demonstrating your value to the golfer. Use every possible medium to shout them out loud and shout them out often. This is your value to the golfer, who is the lifeblood of the golf club. And remember, we're dealing with perceptions. And there's a big perception that you're a behind the counter mini-me retailer. You have to work very, very hard to undo that perception. We need more and more people to value you front of counter, both management and the golfer. That means that right now, rather than just recording the extremely long hours you're on property, you need to start recording your time committed to engagement, providing the golfer with the ability to have more fun beyond the first tee. That includes fitting, it includes coaching. It may include clinics and any other way you can help the golfer beyond the first tee. You need to track what percentage of your time is in, say, admin, retail and staff management, and what percentage is in engagement with golfers. And while we could argue that a 40-hour week, and by the way, who works just 40 hours anyway, could be the opportunity to have 240 separate engagements. We know that's impractical, but that's the ambition. And to help you get to that many engagements, of course, you can use groups. And I hope you can see how valuable engagements with groups can become for you. one 45-minute session changing the lives of 5, 6, 7 or more golfers is the great use of a golf professional, a golf club. That's something everybody, the golfers, golf club management and the brands should all value. But let's switch to golf club management. Of course, golf club management, while they're going to be swayed in their opinion of you by the positive feedback from the membership or golfers, they're only going to take a real reading from the numbers that appear on a spreadsheet. How many rounds, how many golfers, how many members, how much revenue. While there are 5 numbers that are going to be critical to your value, there are 2 that are probably of a higher priority. These are numbers, if you want to show value, that you should have as very definite targets. The priorities being how many new golfers can you recruit and how many golfers can you retain. If you're at a public course, the definition of both those numbers is related to their use at your facility, of course, but still, the 2 biggest numbers on here: how many new golfers do you aim to recruit? How many current golfers will you retain? At public facilities, you ought to be targeting your irregular visitors with a view to making them regular. So how many occasional golfers will you raise from occasional to regular, driving more rounds? And by the way, a number not to underestimate on this slide is the number of ex-golfers you can recover. So how many lapsed golfers will you recover? It's very interesting to discover how many ex-golfers that are out in the market versus golfer. Every time we do that study in various countries, we'll find at least 2.5 ex-golfers for every current golfer. That's a big market opportunity. So we ought to have numbers recorded, and we shouldn't be shy about our targets on these numbers, because it's showing the management that we're committed to numbers they value. If you remember back to one of our original webinars, and these numbers are driven by 5 strategies: reducing losses, driving more golf from our occasional, recovering the lapse, the old feet, driving value to our avid golfers and making sure they stay very happy, and of course introducing recruitment, the new blood. And the incentive for us to drive all of these numbers is the principle that there is a rising tide that lifts all boats. More golfers playing more golf isn't just great for the golf club, it will be great for your retail and coaching business. But before we leap to management reporting, we also need to think about how we manage our teams and not what numbers we get them to look at. Before we leap further, we also need to think about how we manage our teams and make sure that they're valuing the right numbers. In the course of the management basics of retail management and coaching, customer and revenue analysis remain, but we do need to expand our analysis beyond that. Before looking at how we expand that analysis, I want to knock something I've heard in the golf industry on the head, and also open our minds to who are the golfers we should be trying to reach and engage with. So let's look at Pareto. There are those that hold up the Pareto principle as an argument that we should concentrate more on less customers. The 80-20 rule. Actually, that's a corruption of both Pareto's law and this whole statistical analysis. The principle states that 20% of your effort will generate 80% of your revenue. It doesn't say, as some suggest, that you should redirect the other 80% of your effort, therefore, on those 20% of the customers to get them to spend more. It doesn't say that. In fact, we have an industry where the 20% of our members who spend the most money make up almost 80% of our time, actually. We're a very responsive industry. We respond most to those who come to us most. Do the occasional golfers get a disproportionately high amount of your time? No, they don't. Our regular golfers, our big spenders who visit us often, get the disproportionately large amount of your time. It is for that reason that we have such a large loss rate in our industry. Those that don't visit don't get our attention. We can't go on actually spending 80% of our time with the 20% who with 20% of the golfers who spend 80% of the revenue, we need to look after the 80% who aren't spending enough, who aren't playing enough. So let's get back to staff, and here's the first very simple report. It's easy to compile. Each staff member should retain through the day details of golfers that they've engaged with, the activity they've engaged with them in, and the time period. I don't mean taking their money, I mean engagements like coaching, engagement like clinics, engagements like skills challenges, I mean engagements like a company play, engagements where we're doing things, or fitting, for instance, or coaching, where we may be influencing the golfer beyond the first tee. So each engagement, fitting, coaching, clinic, skills challenge, company play, should be recorded with the time spent. And if there's more than one golfer, please, the number of golfers, if you don't want to put all the names. In your staff meeting, each of your staff, your weekly staff meeting, should kick off the week by providing a run-through from this report, giving you the highlights, the biggest wins. And as a team, celebrate the big wins, where you took a golfer that was struggling and got them to play 2 or 3 times, or got them to play in a club competition. Those are numbers we need to start to value with our teams. This, by the way, will then provide you with the consolidated report you can start to give management, which I'll come to later in this webinar. By the way, I'd argue that the sooner you start to talk to management about the extent of your engagements, the better. They understand very well the outputs, rounds, revenue, members they want, but are much hazier about how they get those outputs, in my experience. We need to help them understand that they need to respect the value of engagement. They need to appreciate that they may well be inspiring through the quality of the product, how good a facility they have, the course condition, or by the prices and promotions they're running, that they're inspiring golfers. But without engagement when a golfer visits, we have a very poor conversion to the numbers that really count. More rounds, more members, more revenue. We'll get an awful lot of tried it once-offs. I would show your management this as part of your reporting every single month. Engagement rules all. They need to be on board with the value of all engagement in that process, and it's up to you to make that case, not once in a theoretical argument, but over and over again each month, by connecting the engagement to the result. By the way, at the moment it's happening. There is a connection between engagement and result, but no one connects the two things together. The dots aren't connected. Let's just look at a few cases. This is Josh Tremlay. He's a great professional, very modest about his value, in fact. Was unsure that he was creating any. He didn't think his impact on the golf club had been significant, especially with the junior section. He felt he'd just put on 3 junior programs through the year, reaching just 37 families. Using the GM, we managed to get to the actual financial impact of those programs. This report was compiled by his general manager. And down here under new and upgraded memberships, you can see he created 1 new member from these programs and upgraded 2 social members to full members. And he also brought families down, if you look a bit further up, to the facility more frequently, resulting in more food and beverage spend. Their average spend increased. So while Josh, down here at the bottom left, had created just over $5,000, just about $5,000 for himself, he created over $99,000, you can see that in the green on the right, of extra revenue for the golf club. That's a massive impact. So 37 people he engaged with translated into an additional income, not the income, additional income of $99,000 for the golf club. Big result, big impact, lots of value. Mike Heisterkamp here is the pro at a club in a region of the US that has lost over 25% of its population in the last decade, up in Cleveland. And if mired in economic depression isn't enough, they're within a wedge of one of the nicest golf clubs in the United States, that, by the way, itself is now waiving joining fees. Consequently, it's a tough market for Sugar and Valley, and they had just 27 membership applicants in 2013. However, when you drill down and look at what happened, Mike Heisterkamp played as part of the process of application with 14 of the applicants and converted 11 to membership. Remember the model: inspire, engage, convert, retain, engage, and converted to 11. The 13 who didn't play with Mike, who just engaged with the general manager or in a telephone call following their application, resulted in just one conversion. That's a big difference. It's a huge difference for the golf club. That's like Apple versus Best Buy. How valuable is Mike Heisterkamp? He's a genius in the conversion process. Ryan Fitzpatrick, another very modest pro. He put together in 2015 the Tuesday Evening Fun Scramble League that had a number of series in this sort of league over 46 weeks. Again, he never connected the dots. So he had him compare with his GM Tuesday F&B spend without the Scramble League running, and Tuesday's F&B spend with the Scramble running. On his nights, it was on average just more than $2,000 a week extra. That's nearly $100,000 in the year for running one event every week. But no one was connecting the dots. It is very, very easy to start the process. Connecting the dots might be more difficult, but we need to start getting our management to value the key input numbers, and engagement is an input, very, very critical input number. It's very easy to create this monthly engagement report. It should be front and center of your feedback. It is the most important duty any PGA professional performs using their PGA professional skill. Engagement with golfers. So company play, supervised practice, swing assessments, fittings, clinics, coaching, skills challenge, fun performance events. You may have some others. This is not difficult. There is no reason everyone can't walk away from this webinar and implement this report. It becomes far easier if you get each of your staff to record each week what engagements they've had. But this report is something you should give to your management every month. If you're a club that values green fees, so semi-private clubs, public or proprietary clubs, then there are some other very simple engagement numbers to report on. The group and corporate participation you brought in is obviously very important. The number of participants in pro-organised events with their increased spend, just as Ryan did. The number of organisations you briefed in the area becomes very, very important to future revenue. Don't do it and we won't be getting the future revenue. And add to that the size of your online audience that lives within a 45-minute drive of the facility. Yes, it's very important you tell your management that you have 500, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 local golfers who you are communicating with every week. That's something that your management can really value. And what you should also be doing as you go through the year is tracking what I describe as your managed golfers. Those are golfers who maybe you're in coaching with, golfers you've played with, golfers you've fitted. Track what they go on and do in the year. If you can track any difference in their spend, fantastic, that's great. But if you can't, then at the very, very least, compare your retention rate with this group with what is the average for the golf club. You then have a tremendous value. If you're a members club, why would you miss out on the opportunity at the start of a year after renewal to take credit for the golfers you've worked to retain? So if out of all the golfers you've coached, played with, fitted, there's a very, very, very low retention rate, and I'm almost certain there will be, then there is a way of you demonstrating clear value to your management. My losses from this 300 golfers was only that. Our losses from the other 300 in the golf club was that big. Therefore, I've created that difference for you. This all happens if you do more than push the number of engagements. So it's not enough just to run each engagement, but in fact you need to work hard to use the engagement to convert someone to the point where they're going to become a bigger customer, or even to retain them as a customer. In this scenario, I like to describe it as every engagement has an end in mind. It is a means to an end. I hope as we've gone through this, I've touched on your value to the golfer, and you can see how important it is to both demonstrate your value to the golfer and provide value to their why. And it's very easy to do. You saw some very simple ideas. Darren Paris's yardage distance are very simple to do. I hope I showed you ways that you can sit with your team and help your team meetings and give a very simple reporting process and make your team meetings much more about the customers. And I hope I've given you an engagement report to start with that you can provide your management once a month, and if you want to go further, some ideas on ways you can translate that to the money. If anybody wants to follow up with me or contact me or speak to me, my contact details on the screen. Meanwhile, I know how valuable you are. I suspect you know how valuable you are. It's our job to make sure the industry knows how valuable you are. Have a great year. Thank you very much.